It's Billy Porter from adsupport.co here, and in today's video, I'm going to be talking about what metrics you should track for your YouTube ads. I was recently speaking at a mastermind on YouTube ads and ads in general, and one of the big things that came up was metric tracking and basically how to make decisions in the account. When should you turn ads or campaigns off? When should you scale them up, etc., etc. So that's what I'm going to go into this video. I'm going to be giving you some benchmarks for all of the metrics that you should be tracking, what they should be, and then obviously that's going to give you an idea of where you're falling short, what the bottleneck is for the account, and what you need to improve on, and then just general decision making matrices so you know exactly how you should be optimizing an account. I'm just going to come over to an example tracking sheet here. So I've just got a month of dummy data just to show you what's going on, and then we'll jump into exactly what all these metrics should look like. So there's an example sheet that I've just deleted all the data in this and just have 1 month, but there's an example sheet in there for the whole thing. So essentially there'll be every single month of the year. Those are all filled in on a dashboard so you can look at a high level what's been happening. Is performance decreasing, increasing, or whatever it is? So this is something you should be filling out every day. I think Sam Evans probably came up with the first formalized one of these for VSL call tracking sheet. Again, if you run a different type of offer on YouTube, I recommend you don't. I recommend you run a VSL call funnel or similar just-in-time webinar, whatever it is. And so some of the back-end metrics might change if you're doing that, but all the front-end metrics will be exactly the same. So on this sheet, essentially how to use it. White columns are data that you input either from a Google Ads dashboard, Hyros, or your CRM, wherever you're getting the leads and calls and sales. And then everything in gray is a formula which is working out something basically accurately based on the Google Ads dashboard and just doing the formula exactly as Google would do it. So ad spend, again, do this to 2 decimal points. That's pretty self-explanatory. Impressions is how many times your video appeared, so how many times you basically paid for the placement. Next is views, so how many times your video was actually watched as a percentage of the impressions, which is exactly what view rate is. It's how many impressions did you have and how of those people, how many of them viewed the video. Cost per view, again, just ad spend divided by views. CPM, ad spend divided by impressions, so how much are you paying per 1,000 impressions. Cool clicks, pretty self-explanatory. There's only one format of clicks. It's not like Facebook, there's outbound clicks, like CTR, all clicks, all that crap. On Google, there's only one, so pretty easy to track. CTR, again, how many impressions did you get? How many people clicked the ad? CPC, again, most of the time that's just going to fluctuate based on what your CTR is and how much you're paying to advertise, so CPM. And then the leads, so pretty self-explanatory. Probably if you use a third-party tracking like Hyros, input them using that, as long as it's accurate. If not, use the CRM. That's probably the most accurate thing. Don't rely on the Google Ads dashboard data for how many leads and calls you've got, because it will be 75-80% accurate, but it won't be 100%. So important that this is correct, because that influences what the landing page percentage is if you think there's an issue and you need to fix it. So having the most accurate data possible in this sheet is the number one priority. Landing page percentage, again, how many clicks, how many of those became a lead. CPL, how many leads, how much did you pay for them. Calls booked, pretty self-explanatory. Again, VCR is something that's a little bit different. So this is VSL conversion rate. So this is how many of the lead turned into book calls. Really, we're aiming for like 15 to 20%. 20% plus would be amazing for that. This is something we don't track for all of our clients because it's more of a sales team thing, but tracking the amount of calls taken is pretty key. If you don't do this anywhere else, do it in this sheet, and then that will give you your show up rate, so you'll know how many of the calls that you're paying for are actually showing up as a live call. And so CPSS, just as a explanation, is cost per strategy session. I don't know why I did that originally when I made this sheet, but I've kind of just stuck with it. So this can be cost per call if you want. And then again, CPSST is cost per strategy call taken. So this is something that's really, really important to track as well. So you know how much you're actually paying for a live call. Because if your show rate is terrible, like 40%, 30%, whatever it is, you're going to be paying significantly more to have somebody show up live to a call. So that's something really, really important to track. Again, how many clients did you get? CC is cash collected percentage. And then the LC is lifetime cash percentage. I wouldn't really worry about the other crap here. Really, you want to be filling out the cash and the revenue numbers here. I'll probably put cash first. this is really, really important because you want to be tracking your cash ROAS and your revenue ROAS. You can't just scale based on revenue ROAS because that's revenue you haven't realized yet. And if payment plans fail, people refund, all of that stuff, you can't scale ads on revenue. They have to be scaled on cash. So you'll see there's two numbers here. There's a revenue profit and loss and a cash possible profit and loss. And then there's a revenue ROI and a cash ROI. So the tracking that we have here only tracks cash, doesn't track revenue. That's how we use Horos. So, but for you, if you have the amount of cash that you collected and then what the total value of sale is, I'd recommend that you input into that sheet regularly. So that's pretty much everything. Let's come over to this one here. So essentially for view rate, you want it to be about 15 to 20%, especially on in-stream videos. When you add that as a metric column in Google Ads, you'll be able to see how much what the view rate was for in-stream, discovery, and some other placements, but in-stream video, 15 to 20% is what we're aiming for there. Cost of view, this can vary quite a lot, just based on how clickbaity your video is, thumbnails, a lot of other things, how engaging your video is as well. The view is going to be people viewing your video for more than 5 seconds. So yeah, if people just click the skip ad, it won't count as a view. For CPM, this can vary greatly based on what kind of market you're in. If you're in a more B2B market, then it's going to be significantly higher. If you're in B2C and more like mass market, it's going to be much lower. So you're in a super wide range there for that. But again, same with Facebook ads or whatever. If it's starting to creep up and get super high, like $40, $50, you're kind of in the danger zone there. You probably need to either improve your ads because Facebook doesn't like, Google doesn't like them basically, or there's something that they're flagging with the ads, or you just need to start running to more broader audiences, and that will hopefully bring your CPM down. For CTR, the metric really for like a winning ad for me is kind of 2% plus. The best ads that I've had and that have scaled the furthest have been kind of 2% plus. So that's what I really would look at. Depends if you're running a B2B offer and you're super direct in the ad, you basically say, here's who we work with, here's what we do for them. Your CTR is obviously going to be much lower. Something very interesting about CTR is that there's a relationship between CTR and CPM. The higher your CTR is, the higher CPM is, because basically Google's penalizing you for taking more people off the platform, which kind of is crap, and it does not good because you want to have a good CTR. But yeah, there's always a balance in there. And sometimes you'll find ads have like a 0.6, 0.8 CTR and they still perform really well because the CPM will be much lower. So the cost to show that ad is much lower. Google's ideal scenario is that 10 people click on your ad and all 10 of those people convert on your website and become a call. That's obviously not possible, not a realistic scenario, but that's what you should be moving towards. That's why I found direct ads work really well on Google, because you're being upfront about it. Less people are going to click the ad, but more of those people that click the ad are going to convert because they're instantly interested. They're not clicking out of curiosity, they're clicking out of intent to buy what you've got. CPC, again, depends on the market, depends on the audience, depends on how good your ads are as well, but between $2 and $5 is probably where you want to be. Again, I've seen it be much lower. Obviously, sometimes when it gets to be like 50 cents or something, there's potentially an issue with quality, so I'd keep an eye on that. Landing page percentage, again, depends, which is my worst answer. I hate giving, but it's most of the time the accurate one. So for some of the offers we're running at the moment, the landing page percentage on Google is between 5 and 10%, even though we run exactly the same landing page on Facebook, it's 20%. So it really, really depends. The quality of traffic is higher on Google, and it seems like more, even though the landing page conversion rate is lower, more of those leads become calls, and the VCR percentage is much higher. So it's all a trade-off there. You want to just keep everything kind of in perspective and be keeping an eye on these things. Again, CPL, business to business, probably $25 to $50 is where you want to be. If it's probably too low than that, potentially there's a quality issue. If it gets above $50, unless you're converting at 20, 25%, it's going to be an issue and you're just not going to get enough conversions into calls. So that's where I'd want to be. Between that, obviously close to 25 would be ideal. 20, 25 would be ideal. B2C, so again, if you're running more mass market, if you're running like a BizUp offer or something similar, really between $5 and $15 is where you want to be, probably below 10, even on, again, the quality of traffic slightly higher on YouTube. So even if you get a higher cost per lead, potentially it can still turn into calls and still be profitable. So if it's 15, it's not a disaster, but I'd be pushing for below 10. Cost per call, so business to business, between 150 and 250 is probably where you want to be. With that, getting into the 250 range can be really, really tough unless you have kind of the AOV or your price is high enough that it justifies it, and or you're qualifying super hard on the front end on the calendar application or whatever it is, and then obviously the back end justifies that you're getting qualified people. There's enough cash there to kind of scale the ads. But really, the best offers I've seen are between 150 and 200. You don't want to be paying $97 for a call, because often you can just run into quality issues. So that's something I've been on. I never get excited when the cost per call is super low. It actually just concerns me, and I go, there's something not up with this, and that there's probably a massive quality issue. So that's something to bear in mind. For B2C, because you're running more mass market, because potentially there's going to be less intent created, these people might not be as serious about solving the problem. You want to be paying less for a call. So I've seen people get below $100 per call, so it's definitely possible. If you have a dialed-in offer, a dialed-in VSL, it's definitely possible, but between 100 and 175 is probably where you want to be profitable and hit kind of the cash ROAS and revenue ROAS benchmarks that I talk about in a second. VSL conversion rate, again, should be 15 to 20% plus. That's really where I've seen the best offers be, and kind of the best that you can achieve. I've never seen a VSL conversion rate 30, 40% unless you really, really have a high cost per lead and qualify super hard on the opt-in, which I wouldn't recommend. Show up rate between 50 to 70%. I can make a video on show up rate because it's something we've been talking about a lot recently. And going through Cole Gordon's STA training, I learned a bunch of stuff that I could share if you want. But again, that's just an efficiency thing. Making sure more of the calls that you pay for show up is going to make a massive difference to your ROAS and what happens after that. So, yep, the close rate 10 to 15%, especially for cold traffic, that's probably realistic. Again, as with all of these, there's outliers where it's lower and it's still profitable. There's outliers where it's higher and it's 25% because their sales are dialed in. But again, just going with averages here and giving you an idea of where you need to be at, and then you can aim for that. And then if it's above or below, make a decision accordingly. And then this is kind of the numbers that we give to clients as far as what to expect. This is what I've been able to consistently achieve for people. And I think that's the sign that you can scale up your ads. Really, you don't want to be scaling in the negative, especially with YouTube. I've seen some people recently where their cash ROAS is at 0.8 and their revenue ROAS is like 1.5. That's not a good spot to be in. There's really a lot of optimization that needs to be done there. And you need to get things stable in a good place to where it makes sense to scale up. So yeah, we aim for a cash ROAS above 2x. Again, enough cash that we can scale. You can't scale on revenue. Then the revenue ROAS, as a result of that, should be about 3.5x to 4x on the back end. And again, that's something we keep an eye on. We want to make sure that, again, cash collected is going to be a function of quality, but it's also going to be a function of how good the sales team is and how much they push for pay in fulls versus payment plans. So that's something to keep an eye on there. Again, this is the example full tracking sheet for you to go into, make a copy of, and do it. You might just need to update the dates because we're getting to the end of 2024 now. Cool. So that was a lot to take in. Let's take a little break here and have a little bit of a breath. And then I just want to jump into what all of this shit means, because I've given you a lot of shit there to look at. Again, I think these benchmarks are going to be helpful if you go through it. And as you start to run ads, you'll kind of see where you fall on all of those, if you're in a good spot, if you're in a bad spot, because it can kind of be a bit overwhelming, especially when you're spending your own money and kind of not knowing whether things are going well, whether they're going bad, because you don't have anything to compare it against. So I think those are helpful. One thing that's really, really important, and what's been a challenge to convey to people, is that there isn't one metric that is the ultimate metric and you should ignore everything else. It isn't cash ROAS, because if you just optimize for cash, the revenue ROAS isn't going to be as good. Potentially, you still want to get payment plans, you still want to scale, you still want to have sales volume. You don't want to just make 3 pay in fulls when you could have 10 and have more revenue on the back end. So there isn't any one thing that you should look at. You shouldn't just look at cost per call. I've made that mistake in the past early on in my career, where an account was at $80. The cost per call was around $80, which is great. There were campaigns in the account where it was around $40 or $50. Someone at the time had told me that I should just optimize for cost per call, just get the cost per call down. If you can get it to $40 or $50, the results will improve. It took the ROAS from about a 3x to about a 1.5 from doing that, and took about a month for me to reverse it and get it back to where we needed to be. So that was a big sign that not all calls are created equal. And so you shouldn't just be paying $40 for a call. If anything, a lot of the time it's better to pay more, and often there's better quality coming from them. It's not exactly a linear relationship. It doesn't mean if you pay $500 for a call, it's going to show up and close. But definitely paying often the best quality comes from the campaigns with the highest cost per call within a certain range, within probably the range that I've showed you. So that's really, really important. So you want to be looking at everything. So again, in the initial stages, the first few days before you've got leads and sales, potentially you want to be looking at what the cost per view is. You want to be looking at what the view rate is. You want to be looking at what the CTR is. If the CTR is like 0.4%, the chances of that being a top performing ad are very, very low. So you want to keep a very, very watchful eye on it. If it doesn't improve, cut it off. A lot of what you're doing is not so much scaling is pretty easy. When it comes to YouTube ads and ads in general, reducing the amount of inefficiency is the number one thing you're going to do that's going to increase your ROAS number. It isn't increasing or doing horizontal scaling or doing bid caps or cost caps or target CPA, target ROAS or any of stuff. The thing that's going to scale you is reducing inefficiency in the account. So that's what you really want to think about. That's all you want to think about, basically. Cool. And then what becomes before influences what comes after. So I always use this example. So someone came to me recently, the CTR was 3.8%, something like that. But the landing page percentage was super low and they weren't profitable. They weren't getting a good cost per call. But they were like, I'm trying to identify what the bottleneck is here and I can't figure it out. And so they were like, well, CTR is great, so it can't be that. It must be something else. And I had to stop this person and kind of talk to them about it, because it's a hyperbolic example, but I could make an ad that says, in the first 5 seconds, I say, if you want to make $1 million, click this ad, 100% confirmed, no scam. And lots of people are going to click the ad because they want to find out what it is. And my CTR might be 8%, but none of those people are going to convert because they click there out of curiosity. And for the $1 million, they didn't click here because of the method. They didn't click here because of me, whatever it is. So you need to really think about that. That means, so again, with landing page conversion rate, everybody would say, oh, well, it's 2%, it's the landing page, we need to split test the landing page. But what they've seen in the ad before they hit the landing page massively influences their likelihood to convert. Same with the VSL conversion rate. What they've seen in the ad, what they've seen on the landing page, that influences the likelihood of them booking a call. So you can't just isolate VSL conversion rate and go, well, that's 8%. We need to split test it. That's the only thing we need to do. Nothing else is an issue. So you've really got to look into these things. And just remember that, like I've said there, what comes before influences what comes after. So don't look at something in isolation. Again, that comes back to the other thing. As far as everything in context, what do the overall metrics look like? If the cost per call is $100, but the CTR is terrible, the show rate for those calls coming from that campaign is terrible, then it needs to be cut off. Cool. So yeah. Upper and lower limit. So again, like I said, there's an upper and lower limit. You'll see this the more experience you become with running ads and the more mature an account becomes. You'll see when you launch a new ad, you roughly know what's going to go on. Again, if my average cost per call is $200 and an ad I run until $350 and it hasn't booked a call, or $400 and it hasn't booked a call, I know it's unlikely that that's going to come back in KPI. So I can just shut that off. Again, if normally we pay $200 for a cost per call and a campaign launches and it starts booking calls for $100, that's something I'm going to watch very, very closely and see if those calls turn into sales. I would say pretty much off the bat, the likelihood is they won't, because the quality will be very, very low. And again, I'll look at other factors. What is the CPM? Is the CPM super low, which would be another sign that this is cheap traffic, which means probably not quality traffic. And so this isn't good. And I'd probably shut that off. So again, another thing too about probability. So you can't just focus on the linear relationship I said, or the semi-linear relationship between cost call and sales. So let's say a campaign has 2 sales and the cost per call is $500. If it's only booking 2 calls a week, for example, it's going to be very unlikely that it's going to continue to make sales. Or even, that was probably a worse example. Let's say there's 1 sale instead of 2 sales. It's going to be very unlikely that it continues to that trajectory, because the volume of calls is so low that we'd need 50% of them to convert as far as close rate for it to be profitable, which that isn't going to happen. So a lot of the time when it comes to making decisions like that, it just comes down to probability as well. Again, even if you use the CTR example, if the CTR is like 0.4% and there's only 20 clicks a day versus another ad that's running at 50 clicks a day, even if the metrics, the lead and call metrics look good on the ad with 0.4 cost CTR, the probability of it producing more calls and more sales over time is lower because the amount of clicks that it's getting a day are very low. So that means the less clicks, the less likelihood of getting leads, the less leads, the less likelihood of getting calls, the less calls, the less likelihood of show ups, the less show ups, the less likelihood of we get sales. So a lot of the thinking here is just probabilities and obviously just recognizing what the upper and lower limits are. There's a big lesson with a client recently where we were just optimizing for cash collected and it turned out to not be the right thing to do. We've made a big shift as far as what we focus on and optimize for, and then also some location and demographic targeting that came from analyzing the data. And Goodhart's law, which I think about a lot and pretty much sums up everything I've just said in the last 10 minutes, is when a measure becomes a target, it ceases to be a good measure. So if you just focus on cash ROAS, it ceases to be, if you focus on that and that becomes a target, that ceases to be a good measure of performance. So you need to focus on everything in context and not just pick one thing and attack it aggressively. Like if the landing page conversion rate's low, don't just think of that and only attack that, because you can make the landing page conversion rate up to 40% by not giving people a lot of information, having very limited copy on the page. A lot of people will opt in, but not a lot of people will become a call. So everything in context. And then this is kind of an optimization calculator. I'm not going to go through the calculator. I'm going to go through the example because this makes my head crack trying to explain this. And I've already done a lot of talking already. So essentially KPI 1, if you're running a VSL call funnel, KPI 1 will be lead, KPI 2 will be call. And so you can run through this matrix and figure out when you should be pausing ads, when you should be pausing campaigns based on this example. So if we go down here to the example, so KPI 1, again, once you've run ads and you've got a baseline, so let's say you've run ads on YouTube for a week, you understand what your cost per lead is. Let's say that some campaigns getting a $15 cost per lead, some are getting 20, some are 23, some are 22. You know, roughly if you average it out, it's about $20 for a lead. That's what you would use as the benchmark here. Don't use your ideal cost per lead. Use what's realistically in the cost per lead you are achieving in the account. Don't have it be aspirational. Same with cost per call. Look at the average, figure it out, and then put that in the sheet. You should see from the tracking sheet what your average cost per call is anyway, because it will be at the bottom here as far as your cost per strategy session. So even if you have a week of data, it should show it. And then again, if you don't have that, you can literally just hover over this, click in the bottom corner, it will show you the average. So let's say it's 221. That's what you'll input in here. So 0 to 20. This goes for ads, campaigns. Again, you shouldn't be running multiple ad groups, but if you are, the same applies. $0 to $20 to spend, don't do anything. Again, this is because the cost per lead is typically $20. So until we spent $20, there's no reason to do anything. Between $20 and $40, we're going to check the cost per click and the CTR. If those are all in line, we're good to carry on. If those are very, very bad, then we'll turn them off. And again, it's all in context to other ads. If the CTR is 0.4, but typically your CTR across the account is 0.5, I would just leave it running. If typically you get a 1.2 CTR and the CTR is 0.4, I would turn it off. And then between $40 and $60 to spend, check if there's a lead conversion. If not, turn the ad group or campaign off, unless it's just one ad in the campaign that is out of KPI, in which case just turn the ad off, leave the campaign running. Between $60 and $100 to spend, check if the lead is less than 1.5x your KPI 1, which is lead. So if it gets to $30 and it doesn't have a conversion yet, we're going to pause the ad group or campaign. Between $100, so this is 5x the lead benchmark, so 5 times 20. So between $100 and $350, which is 1.75x the call benchmark, which is $200, we're going to check if the lead cost is less than 1.2. So again, it's all probabilities, and as the campaign spends more, we need it to be closer to KPI. Especially on YouTube, you'll see that the cost per lead and cost per call will be high in the beginning, then over time it'll optimize and get lower. Especially if it's a brand new account, that'll even be more the case. But even for a mature account, when you launch new campaigns, that's exactly what happens. It's very high in the beginning, then optimizes over time. So yes, we're going to have to bring the benchmark down as it gets to more spend. We can't afford to be paying we don't want it to be $50 for a lead. That is not going to get any better if it's already spent $500 and it's at $50. It's not going to change. So between $350 and $500, so this is 2.5x the call benchmark. So if it gets to $350 and $500, it hasn't booked a call, we're going to turn the campaign off or turn the ads off. Again, we're going to turn the ads off if other ads are in KPI and it's just one ad, then we'll leave the campaign on and turn the ad off. If all ads are out of KPI, we'll turn the whole campaign off. Call between 500 and 1,000. Again, we're going to check if the call conversion is less than 250, because that's going to be a sign that it's going to be consistent and consistently be able to scale. And then above $1,000, we want it to be 1.15x call benchmark. So again, this is a worst case scenario. Really, you want it to be below your KPI, and that's the sign of a winning campaign, is if it's below $200 in this example. So that's what you should really be looking at. But this is kind of a worst case scenario as far as removing inefficiencies, and anything that fits the criteria on any of these 8 points, you should be turning it off. And that's going to reduce the amount of inefficiency in your account, make you more money, and help you scale further. So we'll leave it there. I'm sure I'll do another video where I go live into account and show myself optimizing, making decisions in the accounts, showing how I cut ads and campaigns, show how I scale up ads and campaigns. And so we'll do that in another video, but this is long. So I'm out. See you soon.